Hey Eagle fans, this is EaglefanKarl. This is going to be my preview prediction video for the season opener against Washington as the Eagles strive to get back to the playoffs and strive to get back to the big game at the end of the year, hopefully recapturing what we had 2 years ago in our Super Bowl run. But we can't jump too far ahead. We've got to start with the games that are in front of us, and that includes an opening game in division against Washington, a team that we've had a lot of success against the last couple of years. And as I look at it, that success should continue. There's no way that in theory we should lose this game. Of course, it's the NFL, so there's always the any given Sunday. But I would expect that it's going to be sort of hard to have a down game as the opener, especially an opener at home. I would expect that we should be able to jump out on this team, and if we're able to jump out on this team, it could spell real problems for them. The reason I say that is because the one way I see us losing this game would be if Washington has a decent defense. And they actually have some good running backs, especially with well, not rookie, but second-year player, first year in the NFL, since he got hurt last year and didn't play in his rookie year, Darius Geis. So you're going to have him and Adrian Peterson, sort of a two-headed monster that should be able to run the ball effectively this season. Now, of course, they don't have their big left tackle, Trent Williams, so that's a big loss for them. But overall, I think that they should be able to move the ball on the ground, eat up some clock, and then their defense might be able to make just enough plays. I think that's the way, that's the game plan they sort of have to have going into this. For that reason, if the Eagles are able to get out to an early lead, especially open up a two-score lead, it could start putting some pressure on Washington to just be able to keep up that they're not going to be able to do, and it's going to go completely sort of against the game plan that they sort of probably want to play against us. I would just stack the box and dare Case Keenum to beat us. I really would. I am not worried about him as a quarterback at all. I think the one decent season he had was a product of the fact that he was in Minnesota with a lot of good weapons, and he just does not have that in Washington. So I just stack the box and dare him to beat us, which I don't think he's capable of doing. All in all, it's going to be exciting to see this offense work for the first time. Really don't know what to expect. On paper, it should be an explosive offense, but they really haven't played together, so that may cause some problems. If you watched the opener between the Packers and Bears, you saw what can happen when offenses aren't in a rhythm. Terrible offensive game from both sides. Some of that was good defensive coaching, but ultimately, it's a reflection of what can happen when you're really not playing your offenses early on. So I guess something like that could happen, our offense not being in rhythm, and as a result, you sort of have some problems. That's always a possibility, but at this point, it's not something I'm really worried about. If you missed it, I had some preseason videos I had done with my cousins. The last one of those was a series of predictions where we went through the whole season. I'll put a link up there in the corner if you want to go ahead and check that out. And in that video, I had said I thought this was a win for the Eagles. I'm certainly not going to go any different now. As far as a score, I like the Eagles to get out to a big lead early and just sort of be able to cruise through this game. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic, I don't know. But I see a relatively easy win. For that reason, I'm going to go ahead and pick a score of Eagles 31, Washington 13. So let's go ahead and do some predictions overall. If you saw my prediction video, you know that was the standings I had for the NFC East. I'm going to make one slight adjustment to that. I think Miami's going to be terrible this year, so I'm giving an extra win to Washington and the Giants, who I had losing to Miami earlier when I had done the W's and L's. So I'm giving them each an extra win. But that's ultimately the standings I have for the NFC East. In terms of playoff teams and division winners, for the NFC East, obviously then, I have the Eagles winning the NFC East. As far as the other divisions, in the North and South, I'm going to go with the two teams I picked last year who didn't win it and came up short, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with them. I'm going to say the Packers in the North, the Falcons in the South. I think Breeze is due for a down year for the Saints. I don't think the Bears are going to be able to repeat what they did last year. And I like Rodgers to really have a bounce back year. So for that reason, I'm going to go with the Packers and Falcons. Out West, I think there is going to be a change. You're going to have a letdown, I think, from the Rams losing the Super Bowl. So as a result, I've got the Seahawks winning the West. As far as the wild card is concerned, it's really hard for me to give the Cowboys 10 wins and say they're not going to make the playoffs. So as much as I hate it, I'm going to go ahead and say the Cowboys get one of the wild cards. And I think the Rams are going to be good enough to be able to get into the playoffs. I just think that they're just going to struggle to have the same success they had last year. So for that reason, I'm going to put them in as a wild card. That means I'm not putting in the Saints. I'm not putting in the Bears. I'm not putting in the Vikings. Those are all really good, solid teams, but obviously someone's not going to make it out of that group. So that's my prediction for the playoffs for the NFC. As for the AFC, I am not going to pick against the Patriots until they prove that they're not going to win. So I'll go ahead and say the Patriots. For the East, for the North, I think the Steelers are due for a rebound, and they'll come back. So I think the Steelers from the North. In the South, the Texans, I think, are solid. They made some additions to their offensive line by adding Tunsil. So I think they've reinforced that one area of weakness that they really had. So I think the Texans should be able to get back to the playoffs again and win the South. As it comes to the West, I'm not picking against the Chiefs either. So I'll say the Chiefs go ahead and win the West. As for the two wildcard teams, this is where I'll throw in my true wild cards in terms of teams that I think will take steps forward. Teams with young quarterbacks that I think are ready to take the next step. I will get on the Browns hype train for a little bit, not give them the division, but I think they do get in as a wild card. And honestly, I think Sam Darnold will take a huge step forward. I like the Jets to go ahead and get the second wild card spot in the AFC. So there you have it. Those are my predictions for the playoffs in the AFC. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Who's making the playoffs this year from both the AFC and NFC? That, of course, is my final score for Sunday's game. So let me know what you think will happen with our opener against Washington. Do you think the Eagles are going to roll like I do, or you think it's going to be closer? Do you think the Eagles could actually lose this game? Leave your comments below. Obviously, I'll check in after the game. Until then, fly, Eagles, fly.